Okay, I'm going to now make the Blackberry wine dairy-free. Let me get this started, and then I'll tell you all about dairy-free. We'll sit down, and I'll open with that. But the ingredients are fresh blackberries, a little bit of sugar, my dairy-free mix, and there's a gentleman in the audience who suggested this and brought in a bottle of his own blackberry wine that he has been specializing in for years. Do you have that here and want to come up?
There, help yourself.
Great.
I'll open it though.
Now, just before you sit down, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, that's just blackberry wine.
Oh, don't get too comfortable.
I mean, let's put it this way then. All right, that's blackberry wine. You're up in the 20% range. That's a second award winner from the Pennsylvania Wine Association.
Wow.
It's that was actually the first wine I ever made and put in a contest 15 years ago, and I've been making it ever since, and I can't keep it around.
Wow.
But every wine I make is fruit. I make nothing with grapes. No Zinfandels, no white wines, no red wines. Everything is fruit based. Strawberry, banana, I got them all. Wow. I got awards for a bunch of them.
Well, thank you very much.
And my bottle is where?
Oh, you get this, Jeff.
The very last bottle of that batch.
You get to take this home.
The very last bottle. You got to wait till next year for me to get it in. Right now, next is strawberry.
What's the name of your
No, I'm a homemade guy making the basement. I don't. I try.
Might want to put a label on it. I'm just me speaking. Now remember, this is more than a 750.
Oh, I'm not using both.
Okay. Here. Well, how much you need?
Well, I was going to try to bring my mixer over here, and I guess you've got enough cord to do it.
How much wine do you need?
I'm only going to use. I'm going to use 12 ounces.
12 ounces.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is going to. We're going to make this in my newest machine. This is our CB100 batch freezer. There's a very specific market that I'm targeting with this. I'm targeting small, executive, family-owned restaurants, country clubs, and the largest buying group that has ever come along since us baby boomers, and that's the millennial age group. The millennial age group has a lot of money. They are very, one lady I told that to, and she said, of course they do, but they've been living in my basement for 4 years. But we can get past the jokes and look at the millennial age group as a buying group. They're going to be around for a long time. When I was 18, I had a friend who was a little older than me, and he was a stockbroker. And he said, I'm going to spend my career tracking you. And I'm at the bottom of the baby boomers. Jeff's at the middle of the baby boomers. And he did. He said, at 18, you're buying cars. At 22, you're getting apartments and going to college. At 28, you're renting a condo and getting married. You're buying, at 32, you're buying baby supplies. You're buying a Dodge Caravan at 40, and you get up into the 50s, and maybe you're buying a second home. All the way up to now you're looking at a Jimmy Buffett retirement community in Daytona Beach. How cool does that sound? But the point was he tracked us and bought whatever the largest group was buying. Not unlike Warren Buffett, who always had the slogan, he said, I buy what I use. So he'd buy Colgate-Palmolive, he'd buy NetJets, and that's the way he invests. I'm looking at the same thing with the millennials, and what I saw is a few years ago a great idea came out called a shared kitchen, where someone like me takes the money and builds a full-size kitchen and then charges you $25 a day to come into the shared kitchen and make your specialty brownies or your cookies or your pasta or your ice cream or sorbet. And that's how you started your business. Well, those shared kitchens have gotten up to about $35 to $40 an hour with a 3-hour minimum. So you do that times 3 times a week, and you're looking at several $100s a week that you don't have starting a new business, but you don't have the money to get going. And as a group, I would say that this age group wants to experiment before they go into business. Jeff and I would tend to disagree with it. He stepped out of the room, or he'd be pulling out with little hairy heads. But I say, get into business, get going, and everything will work out. But a lot of people cannot afford shared kitchens anymore. They want to experiment with their flavors. So I came out with this model, the CB100, which runs off of regular house current. It's all 100% made in the USA. It's a Copeland compressor. Anybody who knows Copeland's, that's the best in the world. Everything about this is the same as my bigger machines. Decades-long lifespan, only a smaller version of it. And it's very unique. It is our only vertical freezer. And we did something that nobody has ever thought of before. The bowl actually comes right out. The freezing chamber is in here, but you drop in a bowl, and look how few moving parts there is. There's the bowl, there's the bearing that the dasher rides on, that goes in there, and then the dasher goes in. And that's all the parts. And so you put that in like that, drop it down, and when I turn it on, the chamber around it is going to get cold. It makes it less efficient, and it is small, so it's going to take about 20 minutes to freeze, where these are going to do it in about 8 minutes, minus the alcohol. And then when that's ready, you just push this lever, it pops it out, and they were supposed to, oh, here we go. Then you drop in another bowl and make another flavor. So you would have a bunch of these in your restaurant for all different flavors at any time that you want to make it. So let me just rinse this off a bit, and then we'll... If you buy extra canisters, yes, they come with the bearing. Yeah, they're $65 for the canister with the bearing. So I think that's a very fair price.
What's the purpose of the bearing?
The bearing is so that the dasher has something to ride on. It's not riding on stainless steel. It's just riding in the barrel. And, you know, we're always looking for ways to find out how can the average customer break my machine. And so the first time I introduced this last month, I put it all together. I'm making the product. I got everything in that's in the bearing, and I go on, and I cannot get that motor to engage. And I looked at it, and I said, wow. Went out to my vice president, chief engineer. I said, Slade, I have found the first thing people are going to do wrong. It's not engaging because I put the dasher in upside down. So there you go. Going to be that simple. And so this will be ready to go, and I'm going to pour my product in here. And we're going to try this dry Blackberry wine to make a dairy-free sorbet. So I've mixed up the dairy-free. This is called Mommy's. Do I have the aluminum bag around? Yeah. This is something new I found, new to me. And it's fantastic. I've been experimenting with coconut-based ice creams for several years. And quite frankly, they've all been awful. They tasted good when it came out, but they froze up like a rock. And, you know, couldn't tell people, well, you got to go buy a separate freezer just for the dairy-free. This product is all vegan. We have our resident vegan here at the factory, our senior accountant. She's read through the ingredients and said, yeah, that's all perfectly vegan, ready to go. And they used to call this vegan ice cream. But vegan ice cream, just in my mind, it sounds like someone who's in their 90s who weighs 98 pounds, and you look at them and you say, boy, I wish I could buy you a steak. You know, you just look so emaciated. Vegan is not a great term. Dairy-free is a term that the millennials came up with in Los Angeles, and it's great. I love the term. It rolls off the tongue. Dairy-free ice cream. Totally illegal term. You know, technically the FDA could come with 2 Chevy Suburbans and haul you off to a black site in, you know, Istanbul for using dairy-free and ice cream in the same term. The federal government says you have to have 10% fat, right? Yep. It's got to be 10% fat in there, total solids, in order to even call it ice cream. Well, they may have to change the rules because there's going to be so many millions of people selling quote-unquote dairy-free ice cream. what I like about it is, and I get into this argument with some of my old timers up in New England and Chicago and anywhere in the country where we put them into business 40, 50, 60 years ago and they're running strong. And I get the comments, I'm not selling anything that doesn't have a cow head on it. And I go, yeah, well, that's very well. How's that 8-track player in your car working out for you? Times do change. I do not believe that this is going to replace ice cream. No way, no how. Ice cream is still the best and most loved frozen dessert in the world. But as I tell people, you don't know who's not coming into your store. And the millennials as a age group and as generalization only, as a generalization are not fans of dairy. Whether it be that they don't like cows or they don't like the taste of dairy, they're not using dairy in their coffee. And so you live with the situation that you've got a whole largest block ever of people who at this time in life don't like dairy. Not to say they won't change. And I would add 2 to 4 flavors of dairy-free into my repertoire of ice cream. Jeff would have a different opinion because he's got a very specific group. He's got a group that comes there. His reputation is the highest quality ice cream in the world, and that's what they come for. But for new businesses, I think 2 to 4 flavors of this is going to be fantastic. There's an expression in restaurants, and that is you're the patron of the restaurant, I'm the restaurant owner. And you, the patron, have the ultimate right of power, and that ultimate right is never to come back. So if I have bad service, if my food is served cold, if you don't like what I'm serving, you're not going to tell me. You're just never going to come back. So these ice cream parlors, old timers who've been my bread and butter forever and will continue to be, don't know who they're missing because they're just not coming through the door. And you and I may go to a cocktail party. I don't have a phone on me, but you and I go to a cocktail party. And, I say, hey, look, I just got a new iPhone 7, and it's really cool. It does this, this, and this. And you say, yeah, that's great. Maybe I'll get one day. A millennial, again, I'm generalizing, a millennial goes to a cocktail party and says, I just found a place in town that has dairy-free ice cream. Oh, really? Send it over to me. I send it over to you. You send it to 20 of your friends. Your 20 friends say, whoa, dairy-free ice cream. They send it to 20 of their friends. By the time that cocktail party is over, there are hundreds of people in this town that know that you sell dairy-free ice cream. You have now contacted a major group that you never knew that was there. Now, is this going to morph into something else? I don't know. I study fads and trends. Salted caramel ice cream was a fad. Popsicles were a fad. I'm sorry if you're making a lot of money. There's exceptions to everything. Somebody out there is making a lot of money selling popsicles. Popsicles are a fad. Ice cream sandwiches using good quality cookies is a fad. As Jeff will tell you, every person on earth either loves ice cream or wants ice cream. It's the biggest market that there is and always will be. But I think this is a trend, and it's not going to take over. I'll give you an example. Paula, my wife, who you speak to here in the office, she's our office manager. Her father was NYPD, New York Police Department. And Paula and I met later years, and we got married. And when I was courting Paula, since I have a whole factory, I used to, I got to get in good with the old man. So I would make ice creams, really good ice creams. And he said, nah, not eating that. I only eat Breyers, no sugar added. Don't want all that sugar in there. No sugar added. He would then proceed to take a bottle of butterscotch and pour it all over the no sugar added ice cream. So where is dairy-free going to be in 10 years? Is it going to be modified because the millennials have discovered that there's nothing on earth like a banana split? I don't know. But I can tell you, it's like I said, it's the largest buying group to come along, and it's buyer beware to ignore them. You do not write off a group of people that big. Their buying habits are different. On a weekend, I would go out and buy a couple of boxes of Boone's Farm wine, and that was the weekend. My son, who's one of my 4 millennials and lives in Manhattan, he'll start on Tuesday going to Sherry Lehman or any other high-end liquor store or wine store and start looking at $40, $50 bottles of Bordeaux. And on Friday afternoon, he'll pick out a bottle, one bottle. I got 2 boxes of Boone's Farm. He's getting 1 bottle of Bordeaux, and that's going to be their entertainment for the weekend from an alcohol standpoint. It's completely different from us. It's a different buying crowd. They're the ones who are pushing. That's why Whole Foods is successful, or Trader Joe's. I mean, you walk out of those stores and you spend $60 and you got half a bag full of stuff, but it's super high quality. That's where, to me, the trend is going. So, all that said, this is dairy free. Yeah.
What is the name of the company?
It's spelled M-A-M-I-S. Mammies.
Mammies.
It sounds like it should be Mammies or Mamies. It's Italian for mother. It's mommies.
Yeah, he pronounces it mommies.
It's pronounced mommies, but you look at it, and I'll pass this around, and you're going to say, oh, it's Mamies or Mammies. It's made in the USA, and it's extremely good, and it's extremely simple. I just threw 1 pound of powder into a quart of water, stirred it up, and there you go. Yes?
Are you using the gelato mix or the soft serve mix from them?
I use the gelato coconut. Yeah, because I'm not running soft serve machines. I don't want anything to do with soft serve machines. Yes?
So what kind of a percentage would you say for your non-dairy to your dairy food served?
Percentage of overrun. This is technically a high-fat Italian ice. I have made Italian ices, or dairy-free Italian ices, where I substituted all the water for coconut milk. And I added some Coco Lopez or cream of coconut, I usually have some up there, to add more flavor. And it just didn't come out as good as this. And again, I told you early on, I don't sell anything. I'm not here to promote their product. I'm here to promote the industry and what I see as how to make good money in the industry. And again, I have said now for several months, nobody's going to open up a store that's all dairy-free. And of course, one called from San Francisco yesterday, all 100% dairy-free. I think that's kind of like having Barney's department store and only selling brown suits. What if I want a blue suit? What if I want a gray suit? What about a seersucker? I think it's a little too, as we call in broadcasting, too narrow casting. Yes?
Does it scoop at a different temperature?
Ah, that's the beauty. Does it scoop differently? It scoops the same as ice cream. I've got it at 6 above in my freezer, and it's scooping just as nicely as the ice cream. My dairy-free, which was more of an Italian ice, is rock solid. So you have to buy a separate dipping cabinet, which for Italian ice, I mean, why not? It's the cheapest stuff on earth. But she's got a blend here that is great. If you want to write it down, the vice president there is Nate, N-A-T-E, O'Donnell. And I don't have it with me, but if you call here, I can give you Nate's email. I guess it's Nate at M-A-M-I-S, with an S, M-A-M-I-S, gelato.com. And if you've got a machine, you can even arrange to get a bag of the product to try. You may have to pay the shipping, but I think that's about it. Anyway, great stuff. That's what we're going to make. Now, this machine, because of its design and its nature and how it's going to be used, is not going to make ice cream in 8 minutes. It's going to take about 20 minutes. So we're going to load this up, and we're going to let it run, and then Jeff and I and Rob are going to answer some questions from the audience and some that came in. One I'm looking forward to is, how do you come up with a formula? This formula, if it fails, it's because my math was off. I spent 3 hours 2 nights ago doing the mathematics on this to raise this up from one of those crummy little home recipes in House and Garden up to where you could use it in a commercial machine. So I've got my dairy-free mix in here. This one I'm going to mix everything in.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
You said you took 1 pound of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And how much water?
1 quart.
So you're looking at 1 quart per pound of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It costs more than Rob's dairy mix. If I had to guess a number, I'd say about 33% more. But this is one of the rare cases where I would never recommend two price lists. I think that's very confusing. Backtracking. Way down in the Keys long ago, I went to an ice cream parlor, and she was buying from 2 different suppliers of ice cream. So the butterscotch or the salted caramel, a scoop was $2.25, and the vanilla was $1.85. So I was expecting to buy $1.80 for two scoops, $1.85 times two. No, she had two different price structures. I left there angry. I don't know why I was angry, but I just thought, this is crazy. Don't have two price structures. With this product, and I would do it with alcohol ice creams, but with this product, I would have a different price structure. I would say dairy-free, and if I'm getting $3.50 a scoop for 4 ounces, I'd probably get $4.25 or $4.50 for this. I think it's so completely different and so unique and trading to a specific group that you can afford a different price structure on it. I like this. I find that a secret about getting older is you get older, you don't tolerate 16 ounces of T-bone steak like you used to, or 16% butterfat Haagen-Dazs. So I like the fact that this is high in fat, but it's high in coconut fat, which is super healthy for you. You're going to live to 140.
What else did you put in there?
I have only put in. Here's the formula. Sorry. I've put in the wine, some cane sugar, the dairy-free mix, and blackberries. If you'll pass those around. And I probably won't use all of it. Wait till they see your mixer. This is a very sophisticated KitchenAid mixer. It's really cool. Wait till you see the hillbilly version of it that Jeff has. It is so cool. You'll want one. And you can go to Home Depot and set it up this afternoon. Okay. Now, I'm going to have to block the camera because I had to work from around the front. That looks about right. Okay. I just have to line this up a little. Okay, motor drops in place. That starts it spinning, and this is the refrigeration. And we're off to the races. We'll just let it go like that. You guys want to have a seat? I'm sorry? This one has a timer built in, but I am going to keep checking it from time to time. I want to start off with just one little thing. I always like to share with people ideas that come my way, and I had no idea how much people study these videos. We have, Jeff and I have 281 videos out there on YouTube talking about or disagreeing just about everything on earth except politics. And I was amazed how much people watch carefully. They pick up every mistake I make and call me on it. Well, one customer who's in the audience here today, and I won't point him or her out because maybe it's like AA. Hi, I'm Steve Thompson, and I'm a diabetic. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and the customer saw that I had hanging off of me, and basically a miniature IV setup. It's called a pump, and it had wires. Wires go to here. Wires go everywhere, and it's a real pain in the neck, and I wore that for 13 years. And he said, no, there's this new company called Omnipod, and it's completely wireless. And so there's no pump here. I got to just show you. This is where I'm wearing it today. That's called the Omnipod. That's got enough computer work in it probably to run the space shuttle. And that's got the insulin in it. It's got all the controls. It's all set up for me. And I just stick that on, and it's good for about the next 3 days. What a difference. I mean, my old pump was about $12,000, and every time I jumped into the Atlantic, I lost $12,000. So you learn pretty quick not to jump in the Atlantic, wearing an insulin pump. Or you've got these cables coming out of you, very thin, but you're walking around your kitchen, it's late at night, you're looking for that ice cream pie of Jeff's, and you catch on a knob, and all of a sudden, boom, you're thrown back because all the controls have come ripping out of your body. So that's pretty cool, and so if anybody's interested, about learning about Omnipod, and it's for type 1 diabetics, those of us who don't create any insulin on our own.
Is this an ice cream class, or?
I just wanted to show them what's new. Next, we're going to talk about Jeff's Corvette. Beautiful. You lead off.
Go ahead. Me?
You.
Okay. As you know, we do a lot of videos, and I run a class, a course, and I get emails every day asking questions about ice cream making and store ownership and all that. I'm going to leave the ownership and location and sales tax and insurance, leave all those questions here because he doesn't really care. What we'll talk about is ice cream questions, and I got a few here. One of them is some of my ice creams are hard as a rock in the back, and the girls can't scoop them. What am I doing wrong? What can I do? It's a legitimate question, right?
Sure is. If you can't scoop it, you can't sell it.
Right. We keep our freezers in the back between -3, -5 or so, something like that. And we make the ice cream, take it out, put it in the back, put it in the freezers. When the girls are scooping at night, of course, we have freezers up front which are stocked with the same flavors, and those too are hard as a rock. So what to do? What to do? What to do? What the girls have discovered to do is that we open at 6 o'clock at night. So they get in at 5 to get everything ready, get the chairs down, all that stuff. And what they do is they take out the ice cream tubs that they know to be the hard ones, the rock hard ones, and they temper them on the cabinet for about a half hour. And then they put them back in when the people come in at 6 o'clock to buy ice cream. And that solves most of the problem. The reason they don't get harder quickly after they put them back in the freezer is because the traffic in my store anyway is so much so that the freezers are constantly opening and closing for them to get the ice cream out, and that raises the temperatures dramatically. So all through the night, they're fine. When they leave at 10 o'clock, they close the freezers, obviously, and so by the next morning, they're hard as a rock again. And it's hard to scoop. I can't even do it. You take a couple of flavors, and some are harder than others. They don't have to take the coconut out. They don't have to take my adult flavors out. They don't have to take, well, the ones that seem to give them a problem. Coffee seems to get hard as a rock. The Oreo seems to get hard.
Vanilla? Vanilla. You don't sell vanilla.
French vanilla. And that's not too bad. But they know what they are because they know. We make one called Frankenstein, which is a triple chocolate. They must take that out. So anyway, the girls know what to do, and they come in, they get the chairs down, they get things ready, and then they put the tubs on the top to temper, wait a half hour or so, some longer than others, but they know that. And then they put them back in, and the people are already coming in right on the button at 6 o'clock. So the freezers are opening and closing all night, and they're fine.
Rob, if we took your beautiful balanced mix with great ingredients in it and substituted the cane sugar for a whole lot of high fructose corn syrup, what would that do to our scooping? Would it make it easier to scoop?
It'd probably make it easier to scoop. You'd have to drop the temperature lower to freeze it as well.
Because the cheap high fructose corn syrup makes it easier to scoop.
Why would you use that?
You wouldn't, because it cheapens the product. So you wouldn't use. You don't want to mix.
Brain cell killer.
You don't want to mix this high fructose corn syrup. Wouldn't you say that your alcohol flavors, you said, and some of the higher sugar content flavors scoop easier? They scoop easier because of the higher sugar content. I've found that the more sugar or sweetener in a product, the easier it is to scoop.
The harder it is to freeze.
Harder is to freeze and easier to scoop. Same basic idea. So I have a little different take on it. Jeff is using cabinets that are wrapped all the way around in Freon line, so it's all evenly cold. So am I. I'm using a dipping cabinet for ice cream, but it's the same concept. If you've got this box, let me grab this. This is my dipping cabinet right here.
That's a magazine.
It's a pretend.
Okay.
You know, this is the land of make-believe, just
it.
like you make great ice cream.
Got it.
This is this is my dipping cabinet. It's all wrapped all the way around in cheap aluminum tubing, and that's your source of cold all the way around it. So if I put a tub here, it's getting hit by this one wall of cold. If I put a tub in the corner, it's getting cold here and here. So this cabinet may all be set at one temperature, but it's not all equal. The corners are colder than along the long line because there's more refrigeration hitting that one tub. So you take your hard to scoop flavors like coffee, vanilla, and chocolate, and you put them along this line, and you take your high sugar content or your high alcohol or your alcohol content flavors, which are running soft to begin with, and you put them in the four corners. And now everything will scoop very close to being the same. If I go to an ice cream parlor and I see the server struggling with an ice cream flavor, I know the owner doesn't know that about the dipping cabinet. It's not anything they're doing wrong other than they don't understand the logistics of the cabinet, that the four corners are colder. And if I go into an ice cream parlor and all the flavors are soft and I check the temperature and it's still at proper temperature, I know they're buying a really cheap ice cream mix with high fructose corn syrup in it, and I walk out because I don't want to eat that stuff. What's next?
You guys, you must have something.
I had a customer call last night and he said, would you please talk to people about coming up with a recipe and how do you do it? And I wrote him back.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that.
Okay. Well, I thought we'd just talk about it a little bit right now.
It's better to show them.
All right. Well, I'll tell them just in general terms, my method and your method.
Okay.
And I told him,
Mine is right, mine is bad.
I told him we would discuss the two methods, and I said, this is a private email. Please do not tell Jeff that he's right, because he is right. I take a recipe and I do it strictly by mathematics. I say that if a working recipe has this amount of sugar in it, and this amount of alcohol, and this amount of cookies, you know, I'm taking into account all the different sugars, and then I've got to multiply it up to match the machine that I'm running. It's all mathematics. I get a lot of calls which I used to think, what is the matter with these people? But now I realize they do have a bona fide reason. If you've got a 24-quart recipe of mine, 6 gallons, and you want to translate it down to this, they're saying, how do I do it? Well, in many cases, you just keep dividing by the size of the machine. The 12-quart makes twice as much, or the 24 makes twice as much as the 12. So you would cut your recipe in half. If you're doing the CB350, it makes 1/4 as much, so you divide by 4. But it doesn't always work, and we'll find out this afternoon if it did work, because I spent a long time on the lemon ice cream, and Jeff would just look at me and say, what are you doing? It's taste. How does it taste? And I think the difference is I can afford to experiment and throw stuff away because I'm not running an ice cream parlor. I'm trying to come up with a good formula for this class. Jeff is making formulas that he wants to sell tonight, so he's got in his mind what's going to taste good. His general rule is too much is never enough, and he's correct. He's taken some of my formulas and added more to them, like the vanilla, and it's come out better. I used to use M&Ms. I would throw M&Ms in, and I would have a good M&M flavor. Jeff showed me, you take those M&Ms, you freeze them down solid so they don't turn to mush, and put them in the Ninja blender and turn them into a powder, and now all of a sudden, you know, and a light goes off in your head. Wow, you're going to have more surface area of flavor if it's been ground up in a blender. My machine will grind up a lot of stuff and leave some, you know, proper size pieces. But there's just some flavors like the M&M that it's just such a better ice cream if you put it through the blender first.
Actually, all candies can be great ice creams. When you go into an ice cream parlor and ask for Snickers ice cream, really what you're getting is vanilla ice cream with a lot of pieces of Snickers in it. But in order to make true Snickers ice cream, cut the Snickers bars into little pieces, freeze them, put them in the Ninja, and make Snickers powder. You can't do this with a regular blender or a food processor, it won't work. But in this crazy machine, it works. And you come out with Snickers powder. And the powder will actually dissolve in the ice cream mix, and therefore people will say to you, is that vanilla or chocolate? And you say, no, it's Snickers ice cream. Because the ice cream, the cream has now turned to Snickers ice cream. And I've done it with, well, we're going to do it today with a new flavor that I came up with a few weeks ago, and it's selling great. Payday. Does anyone have Payday ice cream? Payday candy bars?
Yeah.
I love Payday candy bars, and I always wondered, how can I make Payday ice cream? Well, today we'll make Payday ice cream, and you'll see how it's done.
Sounds good.
Yeah, very good. So I got another question. What can I add to my ice cream that won't dissolve in the machine to give it some texture? And that's a pretty good question. And what I do is of course you can add chocolate chips, but everybody does that. I buy bags at Restaurant Depot of Nestle Crunch pieces. They're all chopped up Nestle Crunch. And they maintain their integrity in your ice cream in the machine. So you get, and nobody knows what they are, now they do, but it's a great alternative to chocolate chips because it's little pieces of Nestle Crunch, about the size of about half a marble. They don't know about marbles. What size is that? Like 2 chocolate chips together, right? Yeah. And they're Nestle Crunch pieces, which is milk chocolate, not dark like chocolate chips are, and it's got that Rice Krispies, but they don't know that. It's crunch. So that works great in ice cream, and now you're different from everyone else. The other thing I do is I buy bags of Heath Bar Crunch pieces, and those are already chopped up in the bag. They're 4-pound bags, I think. And you add those, Heath Bar Crunch is toffee and chocolate, and add those to an ice cream, and it's a great crunch that won't dissolve in the mix. So those 2 things, you can add many more things, but those 2 are great products that I use. My mic on?
No, you're on. Yes.
There's a glaze over this audience.
How about some questions from the audience?
Sure. So when you freeze a Milky Way and you grind it down, do you have to refreeze it? Or maybe Milky Way is not a good example. Something with caramel in it. When you grind it all down, if you leave it at room temperature, does the caramel start to melt and congeal?
No, it doesn't melt. It turns to powder if you use my method.
So you don't have to refreeze it, keep it in a freezer or a fridge.
No, as a matter of fact, what you need to do is because most of the candy bars have caramel, the question was, after you make the powder, do you refreeze that until you're ready to use it? And the answer is definitely, unequivocally no. You must use it as soon as you make the powder. Otherwise, you've got a brick. Even in the time it takes from grinding it and making the powder, pouring it into a bucket, getting your things ready, the top crusts over because of the caramel. So what I do is I make it fresh. I grind it and pour it in a bucket, and I'm ready to use it. I mean, you can wait 5-10 minutes, but certainly not putting it back in the freezer. That wouldn't work.
Who else has a question? I know that as soon as we break for lunch, you're going to all rush up with questions. So
well,
this is a good place to ask them right now.
The biggest question I have that I get, though, by far, 10 to 1, is where can I get ice cream mix? Because people contact me from all over the world. They come and take my class, they see me using the ice cream mix, and they want to know where can I get it. And the first thing I tell them is to Google ice cream mix, comma, your zip code. And what that'll do is usually give you dairies. A lot of dairies don't make ice cream mix, some do. The other thing I do is I shoot them over to Rob. And Rob has generously offered His company will go up through Georgia, maybe Alabama.
Yeah, our furthest reach right now is up to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. So you can get the best, believe me, it is the best quality ice cream mix all the way up into North Carolina. Now, if you're in other places, some from Pennsylvania here and some from Texas, Rob has, I don't know if it still pertains, but he's generously offered to help you find a source. Is that right?
To the best of my ability, but it's certainly...
You're hedging.
Some dairies up there, they don't service. I mean, their minimums are much higher than ours are, and that, of course, it's out of my control.
Now, also what I tell people is that if you Google ice cream stores in your area, 50 miles, got to be 100 places selling ice cream. Maybe 10% of them make their own ice cream. So you know right away they're getting it from somewhere and they're not far from you. You have a few choices. You can go in there and spy, or you can go to a place that's at least 10 miles away, talk to the owner, and ask him if he'll order your stuff through him because you're too small to get it, and you'll pay him for it. You're certainly not a competitor of his because you're 10 miles away or whatever, 15 miles away. If he's a stand-up guy, he'll do it. If he's not, then you got to send a spy in and find out where he gets it from.
Another thing you can do is you can freeze mix. I do it here all the time. I get an order from Rob, and I'm not going to go through all of it, and so I just take it's 2 bags to a box. They're in very heavy boxes with handles. You can pick them up, and we have them right in that freezer. You can take a look at it, and I freeze the mix, and then when I need it, I took it out for this class. I took it out on Friday, 2 bags, put it into the refrigerator, and let it warm up, let it thaw all over the weekend. My refrigerator is pretty cold. It took that long, but that mix was delivered fresh out of the cow 24 hours earlier. It was in the cow, and then 24 hours later, Rob's company is delivering it. And so it was fresh then, and then when I freeze it, it preserves that freshness.
Now, on that note, also, I used to get my delivery of ice cream mix on Tuesday morning, and I too instructed the driver. He has a key and he puts everything away to freeze it. We have 13 freezers to freeze it, and then according to our inventory board, when I see what has to be made, I would take out a box of, and believe me, this stuff freezes harder than concrete, and the girls would leave it in the sink in water, take it out of the box, of course, and leave those frozen bladders in the sink in water overnight. And 24 hours later, they would be defrosted enough, thawed for me to make ice cream. Well, I've been open 8 years, and it took me 7.5 years to figure out that that's not very productive. We're a high volume store. So what I did was I bought one of those double door coolers, the Coca-Cola type coolers, a nice double door one. They delivered it, and now the guy comes on Tuesday and puts 12, 14 boxes of mix right in the cooler, and they're ready to go anytime. And I just open the cooler door. I don't have to plan for how long it's going to take or what am I going to make tomorrow. I just open the door, take a box out, and it's ready to work.
Rob, what's the shelf life on ice cream mix once it's delivered to the store?
So it's 28 days from production date. Every single one of our boxes and every single one of our bags has the code date on it. So it's not left up to your interpretation or our word versus your word. And also when you freeze it, we typically, if we're shipping frozen, we'll put a 160-day code on it. We say you can push it to 6 months, but I would use it within 6 months. And it typically, I was mentioning to a gentleman in the back, I would thaw it just like you would a fine steak. I personally would not put it in water. I can't endorse that because I've heard of it breaking up before. Definitely don't put it under hot water.
What do you mean?
I would just the composition. It's not as smooth, and
I never had a problem.
Anyways, I don't know. I don't want to leave it up to the user. I'd much rather have you just stick it in the fridge and thaw it out for 2 to 3 days, just like you would a nice
No
fillet.
offense, but in 2-3 days, that's not going to thaw. That stuff is hard as a rock. And
Okay.
Depends on the temperature of your freezer.
Yeah.
refrigerator?
Your freezer. If you've got a 0 degree freezer, it's frozen at 0. If you've got a 20 below.
Well, okay.
But 28 days fresh is a long time. You should be able to go through your order in 28 days.
Yep.
Andrea.
What is your minimum, and then what is the minimum of most other dairies?
So, I mean, our minimum.
Repeat the question. Go ahead.
So Andrea asked what our minimums are, and then what the other dairies' minimums are. So our business was founded on, my grandpa met the former chairman of McDonald's back in 1958. So we've been supplying McDonald's since then. However, he's also prided himself on the mom and pop's deliveries. I never intend to cut that out, at least for the foreseeable future. And our minimum it's 25 gallons or 5 cases. That's for the state of Florida. However, when we go outside of the state, it's most cost effective to ship 250 gallons or 50 cases, and that's a full pallet or full skid, however you want to dictate it. But if you're shipping 10 cases out of state, you're going to be paying more for the shipping than you will for the mix, which to me, I can't imagine you're going to make much of a profit on something like that.
You try to go local.
Yes, ma'am.
You try to go local.
So you'd be better off buying local where you are.
As local as possible, but truthfully there aren't many dairies out there that are still catering to the mom and pops. Many of them are more shifting towards, for instance, on minimum would be, I don't know, say somebody's looking for like 1,500 to 2,000 gallons a week. That's how much you would have to be buying. They deal in bulk. They're supplying all the major quick service restaurants around the nation. Some of these dairies are supplying them nationwide. We're just really in the state of Florida. And as far as our quick service restaurants go, in the state of Florida and then the Caribbean. But yeah, I'm not going to name any names, but they're out there. You'll run into them.
I've never had a problem finding a dairy anywhere in the 50 states, including Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, where I couldn't get fresh or fresh frozen dairy mix at a reasonable quantity. They're out there.
That's a great resource. You're a great resource for that.
Every time we hear of a dairy, we ask how the people like them, and then we put it on our list. And there's some faraway places where our machines are. At the very worst, there's 2 companies, Cisco and American Foods. These are the big trucks that you see. Cisco is CYSCO on the side of the truck. And they're the ones who are delivering fruits and vegetables and meat and other things to restaurants all over. The trucker might have 30 stops a day dropping off grapefruit or frozen this or that. And many of them will carry ice cream mix for you. And it is going to raise the price as opposed to having a dairy right down the street. But if you're in Anchorage, Alaska, you're used to paying more for foodstuffs than someone in Orlando, Florida. So it's a fact of life. The further away you are from the source, it's going to cost more, and you expect that. But not had any problems whatsoever, which is good.
How much is a box? 2 platters.
I'll discuss that off camera.
It varies, and it varies by the price at the time, because the dairy industry is one of the first industries that the government ever controlled. Just a quick history. You might have seen growing up somewhere an old tintype. Those of you who don't know what a tintype is, it came before 8-track players. An old tintype is a little video, and it shows this Model A Ford on a dirt road and 2 men. It's doing great.
Okay.
And they've got one of these 10-gallon pails. Good. One of these 10-gallon pails of ice cream, of milk in it. And they're dumping it on the side of the road next to the cornfield. And I had to ask my father what that meant. He said, well, back in the Great Depression, the price of milk was so low that the farmers could not even afford to bring it to New York City or Chicago or wherever. The transportation was going to cost them more than the cost of the milk. And so they just, and you can't tell Bessie, you can't be milked today. You know, Bessie's not going to hear for it. She wants to be milked at 4:30. Otherwise, she's got her legs crossed and is really upset. So the government, it was the first time the government stepped in and said, we're going to do this nationwide. We're going to control the cost of milk. So dairy products have price supports built into them where, for the most part, a gallon of milk costs the same all across the country, except for maybe the cost of the taxes involved. Milk doesn't, milk, if it varies, it's going to vary in San Francisco just like New York, just like Miami. So their prices go up and down almost on a weekly basis. And then, you know, in order to, you know, keep a stable business, maybe they have to change them up or down, you know, monthly or bi-monthly. I don't know his business. But for the most part, and that's the beauty of it. People say, well, how can I go into business and make ice cream and sell to restaurants when I'm competing with Haagen-Dazs? Well, Haagen-Dazs is paying, they're so big. Well, normally we would think economies of scale. You know, you build one machine, I build 10,000. I can build them for less money because I built 10,000. But that's not true in the dairy industry. Breyers is paying almost the same amount of money for their dairy products as you are. So they don't have a competitive advantage there. So he's not hedging when Rob says I can't, you know, we'll discuss the price off camera, because next week it's going to be something different. And it's price sensitive, meaning as fast as it might go up, it comes down just as fast. It's not like a lot of commodities we buy that once coffee goes up, oh, it's up there forever. I just bought a £1.25 bag of Starbucks. Remember they used to be a pound bag, then they dropped them to 12 ounce. Now they come back to £1.25. It was almost $10. And they're, you know, it's price insensitive one way. Ooh, up. Well, if you drink as much coffee as I do, it's most of your income.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
This looks perfect.
That tabletop unit back there, Steve, you're working on right now, what does that run for?
$3,950 plus shipping, and if we ship it outside the state of Florida, there's no sales tax. So if you don't have any more questions at the moment, anybody?
So this product you're making here, so what's the difference in consistency? Italian ice, sorbet, cream ice, and then this?
The question is, what is the consistency difference between this and ice cream and Italian ice / sorbet? This is more towards an Italian ice, but when you taste it, it's going to be a very smooth, creamy. It's very hard to tell from ice cream. What I have found with this product, and this is just my own personal impression, is that a solid flavor like vanilla, if you don't like coconut flavor, you're not going to buy it. Most people do find coconut flavor, you know, appealing. Where I really like this is with strong flavors. Strawberry, something with butterscotch, coffee. This is where it really shines using the dairy-free. This is ready. We can start serving it. And here's what I'll do. I turn everything off. Turn that off. Raise the lid. Pop the top. And then out it comes. And now immediately I can put that in the freezer. I can pull the dasher out, which I will, and use it in another unit. And I can start another batch. I can put this in the freezer. So the executive chef with a small restaurant can have 4 or 5 flavors, or he can have a dairy-free, he can have a high-fat ice cream, he can have a sorbet, anything he wants, and he's got it right there.
So that little machine will do everything that the others will do.
That's right, it will. And see how easily that comes off? And that can go right into another batch. There's hardly anything left on there. Jack, do you see that okay?
Yes, Steve.
Okay, thanks.
And if you want to do add-ins on that one, you do it before you put everything in at once, or?
Yes, I put the add-ins in all at once. Okay. And I can't have that. It's got wine. Can't have that. You try it.
I did.
Is it?
What?
How is it?
What?
The product.
That?
Is it any good?
That?
Yeah, you don't like it.
Well,
you didn't make it. What did it need more of, Jeff? Well, come on up, everybody, and get a sample of this.
What it needs is a little cream.
Oh, well, that's not the point, Jeff.
I know.
Needs a little cream. What a wise ass. I can say that, can't I? It's my building.
Absolutely.
Hey, what's going on?
Here around in these states.
What about
where
these?
are you?
What happens with these?
Okay.
What happens with what?
Yeah, so I'm
going to eat them.
The furthest we're going right now is Charlotte, North
Well, hang
Carolina, and
on.
then we also go
Andrea
over to
gets
New Orleans.
A garnish.
All right, well, you can do that on all of them.
No, I'm not doing that.
I already have my ice cream.
If they look like her, I'll
I
do
get the ice cream mix from Chicago.
You guys right here.
Arkansas, I don't have no.
Who are you buying it from there?
Let me take 2. Go ahead.
Like a cat.
Use my reach.
Kim also gets a garnish.
Excuse me.
And you also get a garnish.
Here you go, Paula.
You don't get a garnish.
I don't want a garnish, man. Your timing's got to flip.
That's the... Yes, but it was made with...
Wine was delicious.
Yeah.
No, not blueberry.
You ain't making any
Black raspberry.
But you may not be making ice cream with that.
Thanks, man.
Black raspberry.
Missing the cream, huh?
What?
It's missing the cream.
That's up for you to decide.
Tastes amazing.
I think I agree with you.
No, man, that coconut got dope.
How's
I know nothing.
blackberry taste?
Let's go to the other rock.
Add more wine or add more blackberry?
Where were you before?
You make it regular bear.
Hey, can you take a picture of that sign or not?
What?
Can I take a picture?
Sure.
I saw you by the videos and the YouTube.
Well, my senior accountant tells me that I could have added more blackberries. What do you all think?
Which sign? Oh, okay. Here.
Yes. Yeah, I have this recipe up on my website. On the CB350, it's this is a big bottle. 2 750 milliliters of wine, which is a normal size bottle. It's very simple. It's 2, 2, and 2. 2 bottles of wine, 2 bottles of water, same amount that you refill the bottle, 2 pounds of sugar, and 2 bags of raspberries, black raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, whatever you want. 2, 2, and 2, and it makes 6 liters. And it's very simple, very easy. So what do you think on that one? How'd you like it? How'd you like the texture? And that's the coconut. Yeah, very light. My office tells me that I could have used more blackberries in there. So, see, I will then adjust the formula to that for the next time I make it. We're ready for lunch.
Okay. You don't mind that I nibble on these, do you?
Not at all.
Okay.
You want to pass these out? This is there's a magazine called the National Dipper, and the organization is NICRA, National Ice Cream Retailers Association. It's just about the only organization in frozen desserts. All the other ones are geared for the people like Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry, really big. This is their 2017 source book I'm giving you out for free. It lists all sorts of companies. There's Ghirardelli, who Jeff swears by for chocolate. It's a great one. There's also Forbes chocolate that I like. 100-year-old company. So there's a lot of stuff in here for you. It's a great resource. And once you have a frozen dessert business, then you can apply and become. You can get you can get this. It comes out every other month, but this is the annual source book. So.
Out of curiosity, did you put the fruit in this?
I put the fruit in there. Yes.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I see no evidence.
Well.
So does it grind it down really that finely? Huh?
I put the fruit in and used a blender in there because I wanted an even distribution for this particular product. But everyone's telling me, or my staff is telling me, and you're hinting at it, that it needed more blackberries. And more blackberries. So.